go down low.
Okay.
Got it?
We're live.
Yep,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
You got 1 minute, just finishing up the 59.
Yeah. That nine's been there for a while.
Should about be knocked out, yeah.
It's like the boys got on a little bit of a run. And then pretty.
I really
A long minute, isn't it? Gee, me.
I thought it was closer than that. Yeah.
There she is.
It's 9, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Might need to change their 8 o'clock whistle.
Yeah, their 8 o'clock whistle's a little late. First on the agenda is approve the minutes of March 6th as presented.
I'll second.
McCurry moved, Meeks seconded, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pass 4-0. Next on the agenda is miscellaneous motions. Got several here. Move to authorize the direct chairman to sign 2 tax abatements in the amount of $1,853.92.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
Meeks moved, Thompson seconded. Any discussion? I believe the reasonings are listed.
Yeah, the reasons, following a sale, they evidently thought it was best to maybe adjust it accordingly, so.
Hearing discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Move to appoint Linda True, District 3, as a member of the Coffee County Library Board to a 4-year term effective May 1, 2023, and ending April 30th, 2027. I'll move.
I'll second that.
Moved by Knight, seconded by Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Move to appoint Jenny Hess, District 5, as a member of the Coffee County Library Board to a 4-year term effective May 1, 2023, and ending April 30th, 2027.
I'll move.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Move to appoint Clarence Fry, District 3, as a member of the Coffee County Planning Board to a 3-year term effective May 1, 2023, and ending April 30th, 2026. I'll move. Moved by McCurry.
I'll second.
Seconded by Meeks. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Move to authorize direct the chairman to sign revised CP4U dated March 13th. I know we have done this several times, but there was a
Formula error
Formula
on
error.
economic development.
Yep, also moved.
moved by Meeks. I'll second. Seconded by McCurry. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Move authorize direct the chairman to sign capital improvement plan dated March 13th, 2023. I'll move.
I'll second that.
Moved by McCurry, seconded by Thompson. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Move upon the recommendation of Noxious Weed Director to approve and sign the annual Noxious Weed Management Plan for 2023. I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved by McCurry, seconded by Thompson. Any discussion?
This is the same format that Todd has presented to the lodge, to the county for many, many years. I haven't gone over it with a fine tooth comb, but I know Todd spends a lot of time putting it together, kind of summation of what his activity will be this summer, so I have no problem of proceeding ahead with it.
Right.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Move upon the recommendation of Noxious Weed Director to approve and sign annual Noxious Weed Education Eradication progress report for 2022.
Also move.
I'll second that.
Moved by Meeks, seconded by Thompson. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, next page. Move to approve the second bid for CIC annual peopleware agreement by and between Computer Information Concepts, Inc. and Coffee County, Kansas, dated 2023, in the amount of $16,785 to provide Time Clock Plus, TPS, for online timekeeping. Funds to come from general fund, courthouse general contractual line item. That was the meeting that I attended last Tuesday. Real good meeting on the, and on the TV, what do you call that, not Skype, but, Zoom. And, really, with our comp times and stuff like that, it sure seemed like it's gonna be a better fit for the county, so.
Problem solved over the other one then.
Yes, hopefully so. I mean, you're always gonna have little issues that aren't
Sure.
quite, you might have to change
But as a general,
as a general.
with your heads, they've been comfortable.
Yeah, we had a real good meeting with the department heads and people with them, and really think it's gonna be helpful, hopefully. And we had quite the discussion about getting on, real time as well, so hopefully we can get that all figured out.
I'll make that motion.
McCurry moves, I'll second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, I think that is the end of our miscellaneous motions. Larry Gluey, Dale True?
Dale didn't make it today.
Dale didn't make it today, okay. You're up, sir, 9:05, 1 minute late.
1905. You said we will be on time? Oh, I hope.
I just
Is that what you
had to
said?
read fast.
You read pretty fast. I looked at my watch and I thought, Jesse's not gonna be able to get through all that stuff. Hey, thanks so much for, putting us on the, agenda. Dale had another deal come up, so he said, surely you can do it by yourself. I said, sure, Dale. Real simple, and I passed out to you, a little bit of a handout, which we have. Just a brief introduction. We started a trap club, the SCC Trap Club, back in 2019, and we had no idea what we were doing. Literally, we had no idea. But if you look at the bottom of that, the sheet that I passed out there, it says, there's a place down there that says KS, like Clay Target League and the USA Clay Target. Well, what we found out was there was a national organization that was doing this in high schools. And here's what happens. They're not doing it in the high schools. The high school is not affected by it. What you have to do is, the school has to okay the fact that you can use their name. So we had to be able to use SCC, and so we put SCC Trap Club, and that's what we did. We started out with absolutely zero money, and but we knew we wanted to get it started. And come on in, sir.
Morning.
I should know you, Larry Booley. I think I've met you before.
Wade Booley.
You bet.
Wade Booley.
Nice to have you in, Wade. That's what we're going over. And so we didn't have any money to get started, but when you have an idea and you're going to make it work, you just do what you have to do to make it work, and that's what we did. And I was telling Carl, so I'm in there. I've gotten in touch with USA Clay Target League, and all that stuff. I had to get my oil changed. I get an oil change down at Ford. And I went through there, and who should I see? Ivel Trimble. Ivel says, Larry, I heard you guys are going to start a trap club. And of course, if you ever knew Ivel, he was a big trap shooter, and a good one, really good trap shooter. And I says, well, we are. Now you see Bruce. I later found out that this is the way Ivel delegated stuff. He said, you see Bruce, because we want to give you $1,000. I thought, holy smoke, I thought I'd just gone to heaven with $1,000. I'd been out of my own stash of shells. Kids had been shooting stuff, you know, and so that's the way we got started. USA Clay Target I was so impressed with because they have 3 real goals. First is safety. You never get a second chance at safety on a gun range. You never get a second chance at safety on a gun range. And I would invite anybody here to come out and watch us at the gun range. The gun range is out about 150 yards northeast of my house, and it is so fun. We start them you can start them as 6th graders. And we start them at 6th. That's what our kids are from 6th grade through seniors. And they understand safety to the end. And that's for us is a huge thing. So it's safety, enjoyment, and marksmanship is the final thing. Marksmanship is obviously everybody wants to become a better shot, but if you're not safe, you don't have anything. And so those are the 3 big things that they did back in. This was in 2019 is when we started the first. They have 2 seasons. They have a spring season and a fall season. At the end of the spring season, always then they have a state shoot out at Wichita, and which is really, really. There were, I think, 1,800 kids between the 2 days that shoot. Wow. We shot on with the smaller schools on Saturday, and then the bigger schools shot on Sunday. And you may have seen it was on the cover of the newspaper. This last year, they shoot in 3 different levels. They should call them novice, junior varsity, and varsity shooters. And in 21, our group of shooters won the state on Saturday. We won the state for the novice shooters, which was a group of, according to how well they had done, and they won that. They were state champions in that. Well, so last year those kids are now a year older, and they went to the state, and I'll be darned if they didn't shoot really, really well. And our junior varsity shooters were the state champions this past year. That's just some of the success they've had with their marksmanship. But again, I hold up, and Dale and I have talked about this many, many times. I'd love to have anybody come out and watch us from the standpoint of safety, because that's anal for us is the safety. Now, obviously, it takes a little bit of money to run, because here's the thing: kids aren't charged to shoot. They're not charged for the shells. They're not charged for the targets. And then you saw on this isn't a sit around deal. We have several places that we're going this spring to shoot, and of course we provide the shells for wherever kids are going to shoot, and we pay the entry fee for that. It costs just from what we do, and our numbers. This last year we had 25 shooters. We didn't shoot 25 guys, but well, that almost came out wrong. we had 25 shooters, and I think right now we had a couple moved away for the spring here. I think we met with them the other day. I believe we have 21 shooters, and so we're, it's at the bottom of the deal as you see there, let's see, there's Dale True and Jim Hills and Alan Newton. Alan's a teacher at Leroy at FCC. Jim runs the parts store over here, and then Dale has his film store in Leroy, and myself. We're the 4 that we've taken the training of USA Clay Target Leg, and so we take care of them.
So where the kids can children from wherever come in, or kids come in? I mean, what?
That's a good question, because right now we've had kids from other schools want to join us. Because can I get back to your question just a minute?
Sure, that's not. Yeah.
I was going to mention, because like if you went to Pleasanton, they have a team. Erie, I think, still does. They did. Humboldt does, Fredonia does, Madison, I think they're gonna shoot again this year, they did last year. Burlington has a team, I talked to one of their coaches here, they have a team. But you said, what about Iola, what if somebody wants to shoot? And right now, we've not been able to take anybody just because we only have one trap field. And it's, when you start shooting that many kids that we have already, and it starts.
Sure.
I'd like to, and what I've understood is there's another school in the area that would like to, and they want to talk to us because what they want to do is probably what we did. We the very first year we used the trap that's at the west end of John Redmond out there. We used it. We just paid them for the use of it, and
then you set your own up.
and then we didn't. You take kids. The kids are a half hour in their vehicles coming over there. Then after they're done, it's dark. Then you're bringing that many kids back.
Yeah.
That's not the safest stuff and so we realized that right off. And so I told Dale, I said, I found a used trap, only had 20,000 targets shot off of it. We bought it. It was one of those, we'll buy it, we'll find a place to put it. And I couldn't find a place. Man, we looked and looked and looked. Finally, one day my wife she said, I know where you split that thing. I said, where? She pointed out our east window. She said, why don't you just put it straight out here? Huh. Hope you all married as well as I did. But anyhow, the long and short of it, we have a fundraiser on the 25th, and we only have one fundraiser a year. We have a raffle going on for some guns right now, and then we'll have a fundraiser. We have a meal, and then we have silent auction, regular auction, that sort of stuff that night. And that's March 25th from 4 to 8 there at the community center there in Leroy. And of course you're all invited for anything like that. But my point of being here is I'd invite any of you to come out and watch us shoot. We shoot on what it shows you there. We shoot on Wednesday afternoons. And our field is a lighted field, so if we run a little late, we kick the lights on, and the lights are probably better than most lights that you'll see at any trap field around here, because I've shot a lot of them, and they're good lights, really nice lights. So, but it's to ask for a little monetary help. It's real simple, and I would entertain but to answer your question, say one more time, we just can't take any more kids.
Well, I understand. I was just curious, and then the kids have their own guns, is that correct?
They do, and once in a while getting guns to fit kids is the biggest thing in life. Because if you get smaller kids to start out, that's the wrong thing to do. Try Grandpa's old over and under here, and of course it just kicks the dickens out of them, and that's not the best thing.
And they've got to fit.
Yeah, they've got to fit you and all that stuff. I would entertain other questions that you would have, though. That was the long and the short of it.
Well, Larry, I commend you and Dale and everyone involved and the effort put into this. And
well, thanks.
in my eyes, the possibility of programs like this can make a difference in kids' lives and make them make a better choice versus a bad choice in life, and learn to work together. Teaches a lot of things like other sports do. We don't have too many kids go to school and become a professional football or basketball player. It's about learning teamwork, and that's, and how to get along with other people. I'd say this is the same type of
Appreciate
thing.
you mentioning that way, because, in life, whether you're involved with the Scouts or involved with any kind of activities like this, it's very simple. It's only another way to get into a kid's mind so you can help make them a better person, so they can go out in the world to help take care of us. And it's just real simple. And so I appreciate you saying that, because we have found that, and we've seen that with some kids that we have out there.
Well, gun safety is so important. And it's good to shoot guns. I mean, I've always had guns. Things have changed so much, but it's great that you guys are, willing to put in, that's a lot of time, and.
It is, all this is,
And sounds like expense also.
when you're a junkie, you're just a junkie, Steve. I'm sorry, that's just, when you like to do it, you just like to do it, and you like to see others have fun doing the same.
I've only been out to the trap shoot once, and should be out there more than even once a year, let alone once in 3 years or 4 years. But Larry and Dale, and I know, Alan, I don't think I have met Jim. And of course, Brian Joy was involved in this the first year, wasn't he, when you were shooting out here at the lake?
He was not involved with us.
Okay, all right. But I know Brian Joy does some of that kind
Right,
of stuff.
right.
But the night I was out there, they shoot in a group of 5, and the site is very professional. I mean, it's just as professional as any other shooting club has around. And the safety side of it with Dale, at that night, Dale and Larry watchdogging these young people to make sure the safety was really, really followed. And they try to guide them how they hold their shoulder or how they shoot and everything. And I've done a little bit of thinking of this, Larry, over the weekend after I knew you and Dale was going to be coming in. And I mentioned to Wade, because Wade's on the west end of my district, and Steve's on the east end. I just got a 2-mile stretch up the river is all I've got. So there's 3 of our sections, but that don't make any difference. You know, we got 5 different commission deals throughout, but trying to figure out, you know, to help, and yet how much to help by. I know we've contributed, you know, $3,000 to the OK Kids. We've contributed $2,500 to the Veterans Flight. We've contributed a lot of money to a lot of different programs throughout the county. And then I know Bobby and Wade and our sheriff helps out with these type of functions also. And they may be another source to look up. But after thinking about it and what's being fair to help the club out, and the kids will have a fundraiser. They had one fundraiser. It was over 20 grand, wasn't it?
We've had 2 fundraisers.
Yeah.
The first one we raised right at 15.
15.
And last year we raised, I believe, right at 18.
Okay.
I believe that's
I was
correct.
thinking maybe one of them maybe even got over 20, but I'm gonna throw a motion out there, and it's up to you commissioners whether to move it or I'm gonna throw a motion out that we contribute $2,500 to the SCC Trap Club.
I'd second that motion. But the shells are provided, you provide the shells, and then the transportation, and, I mean, to get to the different tournaments and everything.
We don't provide the transportation to the tournaments because parents will take them.
Parents will take them.
Parents take them
But
too.
shells and targets.
Shells and targets are all provided where the kids shoot, and then when they go shoot at these other shoots, the shells are all provided for that. Oh yeah, we love loading up shells in my pickup. I'm thinking, I hope I don't get stopped.
Or your pickup doesn't catch on fire.
Or the pickup catch on fire. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that, Jesse. I better really be
He's got
careful.
insurance.
I hope
It's
you got
okay.
a
But
good
it's a
fire
Ford.
extinguisher.
I don't know if Ford can go fast enough
As long
to
as it's
catch
not
on.
electric, you're okay.
I'm not electric.
You're right, Wade, he is.
He's got insurance.
He's an
It's no
insurance guy.
problem.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, here I've got these guys
Insurance.
after me.
I would second that.
Moved by Meeks, seconded by McCreary. I don't know where to bring the funds from, that's gonna
Angie had said that you guys could do special Parks and Rec or the general fund community improvement. Those were 2 that she listed.
be. What's the Parks and Rec, special Parks and Rec? Did we have an updated
It's
account
her
on
sheet
that?
that she left. Maybe for one of them.
There's $6,000 in special Parks and Rec? Wade, you wanna weigh in on it?
I mean, either or, it sounds like, and it sounds like a community improvement. It's going towards the kids and, gun safety and education, so.
I don't think anything better for it to come out of than Parks and Rec.
I think we pulled funds out of 2 or 3 different classes, or 2 to 3 different accounts, so I think either one can make it a good fit for it.
We'll just make it out of the special Parks and Rec. Motion on the floor, any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
4-0. Thanks for coming in, Larry.
Thank you all for it. I would remind you that on the 25th, we'll supper starts that evening at 5 o'clock. This is a free supper, and you just contribute something if you care to, and then just kind of see what we're doing, and all these nights that you got on that, that's our spring. You're more than welcome to come out there, see what you're spending your money for, and we'd love to have you out there.
It sounds like money well spent.
Well, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Guys, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Larry. Have a safe season, Larry.
You bet.
And that fundraiser is at the community building, correct?
It's at the community
Where
building.
it's been the last 3 years?
Yes, it is. You bet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Mr. Bobby Skipper, Economic Development.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Commissioner.
Morning, how are you?
I have here today, two critical pieces of what is our project up north. Two gentlemen here to provide updates to the commissioners. In the following weeks, there'll be a few action items, but this will be part of that deliberation and just general update. We'll start with Mr. Garrett Nordstrom with Governmental Assistance Services. You want to provide an update from what you're working on, the scope you're heading?
Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, I'm Garrett Norris with Governmental Assistance Services. Nice to see you again. And as Bobby said, I'm here to provide you updates, and so I'd like to just put it out there and answer your questions and see where you are and what I can update you on.
I would, I guess I would just throw out what you guys have been working on and if you can. I know it's probably been a scope from here to here.
Yeah, we
you
can.
know,
I can easily, we can start from the beginning. Of course, when we came under contract, we have been helping to organize each one of the entities. Of course, we have FLMST as the parent company coming out of Kentucky. We have EMP, of course, who you're very familiar with, and then KPN out of Washington, D.C. So they have all independently been working on their what we say would be the proposals to the Department of Commerce. It would include their construction plans, their workforce plans, their pro formas, their financing, their vertical construction plans, as well as what has been the most important thing is their technological plans, or the technical proposals that we're calling them, to put together such a complex project and something that has such a high level of technology going.
is everybody on track with getting their letter intent and so on and so forth out? Is that all falling in line?
So we had, not this last Friday, the Friday before, all entities submitted what we call the statement of interest to the Department of Commerce on the very first day that it was open. There was no deadline, but we had been working the previous months to make sure that we had all information in place to submit all of those statement of interest to the Department of Commerce. Each entity has submitted those, and now we are sort of preparing what we either their pre-application or their full application.
Has there been any dates on when the pre-application or full app should be into the Fed?
There have been. So there are two different categories, or a few different categories, but one specifically for EMP Shield, which we are called leading edge facilities or leading edge technologies. And they submitted statement of interest 2 weeks ago on Friday, and the very first day that will be open for them to submit their either pre-application or full application will be March 31st. We intend to submit EMP's full application on the very first day that it's eligible to be submitted. KPN Technologies will go with them on March 31st, as they are right now. We are considering them to be included in that leading edge facility, and that will go March 31st. The other companies, the passive companies, what we call the FLMST, the Kentucky companies that will be producing passive components to sort of support the leading edge facilities. We're looking at June 26th for the first date to submit those.
So they're not the same time as.
They're not the same time. I think what the Department of Commerce is trying to do is get those leading edge facilities, the ones that are going to be the most intense and toughest to rate and to consider.
And that's EMP and.
That's EMP and KPN.
EM.
So the gallium nitride semiconductor facility mixed with the wafer dicing, we're going to roll them into the same leading edge technology category and submit that on March 31st. So it's coming up quickly.
You've asked us to ask some questions.
Of course.
And we need to let our public know as much as what's going on, and yet, some of the questions maybe we can't provide the answer to yet for confidentiality and stuff like that, but if they submit them the 31st of March, how quick will we have an answer back from Commerce?
We are unclear. We are unclear. There have been dates that thrown out that it'll be 30 days. Maybe we'll know in 45, but we feel that we've somewhere in between 30 and 60 days we ought to hear something. Now that won't be an answer yes or no. That will be an answer that we want to talk. We need more information, or that we want to begin a deliberation back and forth on providing some deeper information.
So, how soon will the supporting entities have to submit paperwork? I mean, the folks in Kentucky here, when will their paperwork be sent in then?
So what we're calling the matured node facilities, like Kentucky, the passive components,
Right.
the resistors, the capacitors, transistors, June 26th is what we're seeing in the paperwork right now.
You're still looking probably late August, probably,
For longer.
September.
For a final, yeah.
I would say you're still late fall.
That date in whatever we can see in newspapers, press releases, is there has been no official date to say you will hear on or about this day. That's moving, a little bit of a moving target for them. And I think it depends on how many applications they get and how detailed they are. And their staffing as well. They're trying to hire at Department of Commerce people that can actually understand these applications and be discerning about them.
You take your first two companies, and then you've got 4 more coming in June 26th. When that time comes in August or September, whenever it may be, will all 6 of those be pooled together where it'll be one grant, if you want to call it a grant? So that all 4 of them, or all 6 of them are part of the activity?
So in our application, we're going to refer to all, or I'd say the proposals, we'll refer to all of them as being our consortium or our emerging cluster, but they will all be rated, or there'll be separate proposals for each one of them.
Okay.
Which I think is probably best. And it's best if they're all coming into the cluster and be able to build instead of just one. You got 4 or 5 others that's coming in that's matching or putting money into it
Right.
as well from the feds.
We have the ability to talk about the consortium or the cluster itself in each one of the independent applications, but again, they'll all be separate or considered separately. However, there is a bit of unclarity there, just because that being together promotes the entire cluster, so we'll see how that goes.
I keep up the good work.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
all I
you.
can say.
Before you go,
everything you do.
I'm so sorry, Commissioner. Would you mind if I got a few questions? I think there's some points. So in the beginning, we have 2 new commissioners. This is why.
Great. Of course.
Yes, sometimes we don't know what to even ask.
Yes, sir.
That's what I said a while ago, we got to come up with something to ask them.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, there was a realization that little me, or even pulling in other resources countywide, we would not have the capacity or the technical know-how to write all these proposals, to bring in all these massive amounts of information and data and communications. It was evident, I don't know, some of you saw me, I think Jesse may have had one of the best looks, but a few months ago, I was overwhelmed. I couldn't even I mean, till 12 at night, we were working on this, and then gradually, Governmental Assistance Services took over that baton, and they have more resources, more capability to be able to package all this and hit a home run, like bring it home. And that's been an objective from day one, is play to win. And I think we are certainly, we're playing to win. And so grant writer just is not the right word. It's, they are putting together, they're the technical proposal writers. They are putting together all the pieces, handling, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's. And uniquely, you interface with every single other party, such as the engineers who are doing the engineering, the contractors, the covered entities, the attorneys. You're right in the middle of all of it, playing the role of coach, maybe. I guess
Leader.
yeah.
And organizer.
Yeah.
You know, my gosh.
Our experiences in administration, so that has a lot to do with it. You know, we helped write grants all these years, but we've also served as project administrators where we've run lawyers, engineers, run maybe not be the right word, but you know, help administer engineers and construction companies and labor unions, and so we are well suited to deal with this. I think it's a good fit, and we've come a long way. We learned a lot in the last couple months.
What would be some of the unique partnerships you've seen with this project, as far as new additions, recent additions to this effort, such as some of the colleges, some of the other companies that have jumped on board, or possible, you know, can you talk to that?
So we are in a unique position, Coffee County is, to bring together with the educational component. Obviously, we need to educate a workforce, and we have, and the CHIPS Act has demanded it. So we've been able to put together an affiliation between University of Kansas, K-State, Pittsburgh State, our main workforce development partner, which is Flint Hills Technical College, Emporia State. We are now, Allen, of course, Allen Community College has come in and can play a big role. And then we're also bringing in some of the world's leading experts in gallium nitride production and semiconductors, where we are making an affiliation with the University of California in Santa Barbara. They bring together a physics team and a semiconductor team that leads the world, if not the nation, in this industry, and also has a Nobel Prize winner in physics, who is probably the world's leading expert in gallium nitride. So we have been able to pull all this together in 3 or 4 months through our entire team, and so we're going to be right here in the middle of a technological renaissance in America with gallium nitride and what EMP has done.
Where are you located at? I mean, where's your home office at?
Our home office is in Lawrence.
Oh, okay, so you're local. I mean.
Oh, yeah, we're local. Yeah, we have been working in northeast Kansas and southeast Kansas since 1987.
Oh, that's good.
And have worked with most communities in the area, that in some area to help rehabilitate their public infrastructure.
No, that's a good thing.
Good.
So with those relationships, there were some, aside from workforce development, there's also some physical structures. But to answer a question that maybe a citizen would ask, what type of facilities are being proposed for workforce training, and where at?
That is a question we're trying to dial down. Workforce training. Right now, we have plans with Flint Hills Technical College to build a new workforce training facility. And help me out at the exact location, near the junction of US 75 and I-35. And so we have been putting together a list of equipment for the inside of the building, but also the building itself, to stand up a new facility for Flint Hills here in Coffee County, that we can bring people in from other counties and other parts of the state to begin their education.
Here in Coffee County?
Here in Coffee County, yeah.
So there was also, one of the other things we talked about in this project, there are requirements, or we say boxes to check, but one of the other is that they're very serious about making sure that these companies are gonna have adequate employment. Now, it does not just mean training people through the school, but having physical bodies available to work. So Coffee County has a population of 8,000 some odd people. Let's say 2,000 of those people, of our total population, work and might possibly consider going to work out at this plant. But that would be a very high percentage. But let's be more realistic and say we capture 100% of the total available employment in Coffee County at this new project. Once it goes vertical and they start hiring people. Let's say we get 100% of Coffee County. Would you agree we probably still are going to have to import people to work at these factories? That gives us a chance to actually grow our population a little bit. Would you agree with that? Or do you think we're going to be able to serve 100% just from the workforce here?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty obvious that some of the labor force is going to come from outside the county.
But this is more of a regional project anyway. I mean, it entails all the surrounding counties around. So one would assume that not only Coffee County, but Osage, Franklin, Lyon, I mean, you're gonna have people that drive in, I mean, come in just like they do for Wolf Creek right now. But wouldn't that be the assumption that?
Well, yeah, but of course, we're assuming that. I think it's a given, and
Sure.
and obviously Coffee County and Burlington is well aware of this with the power plant and knows what that is like and what developing a labor force is like and drawing them in from the surrounding communities. Does that answer your question, Bobby?
It is. I just said the scale of what's being done, I think, is understated a lot of times with our citizens. I know that some of the commissioners have gotten, questions from people, but even when I go hit that coffee shop every once a week, I promise you, they hammer me about all the things that, and it starts off being negative, but sometimes, how are you going to do this? But the reality is, this is an opportunity for Coffee County to employ everybody from within our county that possibly wants a job that pays more, if possible, and also to cause people, for there still to be a need for people to come into our community from surrounding counties, and we have an opportunity to grow our population a little bit. Are we going to capture everybody? No. But to be a resident here and put their kids in school, but we can get a good chunk of them.
I've said that all along.
I think everybody's excited about the nature of the work as well. There's a high-tech, highly skilled employees that will be trained and will be of an ilk that any community would be glad to have, spending their money here, help raise the tax base.
Sure. People
with some disposable income who are lucky to have a high-skilled job, and predominantly people who have been shut out of the microelectronics industry historically as they've been located on the coasts, and those jobs have been, positive jobs and have positive impacts on communities.
Well, an opportunity to keep our young people here rather than moving somewhere else to get a higher paid job, career, however you may want to look at it.
Yeah, Commissioner, I think I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
What we have found is some of the statistics say that we export 16,000 young workers in the state of Kansas every year. And so when they ask where we're getting that labor force, that we're calling that surplus labor, and we'd like to do our best to, retain some of that talent in our community.
Capture some of that loss.
And,
In that being said as well, kids are, I can remember when I was going through school, oh, you gotta go to college, you gotta go to this, you gotta go get a good degree so you can go to the city and get a better job. Well, it's beat into the kids' heads, by gosh, when you graduate high school, go somewhere to school away from here and don't come back.
That's right.
Right.
It's preached to them from kindergarten all the way to the 12th grade. And it's sickening. You don't have to go to college to have a good job.
You do not.
Right.
You do
Right.
not.
That's exactly
you just
right.
gotta learn common sense.
And Bobby, you're right, there's concerns out there. I mean, obviously, we all have questions. I mean, I think I've called you a couple times.
Yes, sir.
Most of the concerns aren't negative necessarily against the plant. They're just real concerns about population, schools, housing, where's the workforce going to come from? And you know, those type of questions. Some of the questions you can answer, some of the questions, I mean, you know, they're just unknowns, I guess.
Right.
But to your point, yes, there are out there, and we try to answer them as best that we can. And I guess when we can't, we say, I don't know. That's
Right.
You know, when this project first started several months ago, a year ago, at that time, I talked about of our high school, 3 high schools or 4 high schools here in the county, that 80% of the students are gonna leave the county one way or the other, might even leave the state, we don't know. But this will be an opportunity to keep our young people around, and that's what grows our schools down the road. But I was surprised to hear the study report here, what, a month ago or 6 weeks ago, where 2,700 of our Coffee County citizens leave the county to have a job, and 2,000 come into the county, or else those numbers were reversed. Whichever it is, we still got 2,000 plus leaving the county.
That's right.
We got to have some way to retain that workforce, or do a better job, and this should, with 2,200 new jobs, it's bound to be a huge, huge plus. Will it bring everybody back? No, but it'll be a huge plus.
Well, whether it's Flint Hills or JUCOs or whatever, I mean, if they have the training, or if they have the schooling, the training to train these people in that industry, I mean, that's a great asset, especially if Flint Hills comes into the area itself. I mean, that's a plus. It's just a plus.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Gonna mean lots of changes, all the preparation for utilities and
It will be.
all of these other things are gonna be,
There's a lot of work to be done.
this, do I understand is the grant, I guess is the correct word for it, is part of that, the agreement that these companies are supposed to produce within, maybe not at full capacity, but within 2 years, is that, am I
Yes.
correct?
I'll let Garrett expand on that, and then, and here shortly, if we get into any construction questions, our engineer's primed, ready to go. He's
Okay.
he's supposed to give you some answers too, but, so percentages of, timelines, once they receive funding, what do you understand about how fast they have to move once they get that go-ahead to get their facilities set up?
Again, we're a little unclear about that. Of course, we're dealing with Department of Commerce, and so we anticipate somewhere by the end of the year, hopefully somewhere by the end of the last quarter or the first of the last quarter, we will know if we have an award. I would think that we would have some sort of direction as far as construction and timeline by March of next year somewhere, that we ought to. Breaking ground, we're still unclear exactly when we're going to be in construction. That will have to do on many things that they will lay out in their award, and so we're unclear about that, but we're going to know something by the end of the year.
And see, you're being very, in my words, pessimistic about that. I do disagree with you, but you're in charge, so you're.
Maybe he's being realistic about it.
He's being very realistic. He's trying to get, but the answer I've given is the practical nature of the demand that exists on an actual contractual level to produce chips. If there is a decision or any comfort given to any of these companies to go ahead and proceed, it's gonna be like lightning. It's just, they're gonna get it built as fast as it humanly can be built because of that demand, that incredible demand. Right now, we see TSMC, who is our major importer of chips. They're located in Taiwan, most of their factories. They have just a few here in the United States. They're trying to gear up too, but they're getting the plugs pulled on them because of the, not just the threat of China invading them, but they have Chinese nationals working in their Taiwan plants. And that theft of intellectual property, that betrayal of United States technology, and other, like, just literal spy equipment being in phones and all electronic devices where chips are held. that's being hammered pretty aggressively from the federal side. So they're pulling the plug on a lot of this. So it's increasing that pressure with all these companies who build products that need chips. Their streams are drying up, and so. But that's the answer I have.
Bobby's right, and I gotta agree with him. I think is what he's saying is that as soon as we have an award, we're ready to go to work the very next day. And there's no doubt, each company has been doing due diligence and working behind the scene to make sure that is a possibility. So once we have an award, they are ready to go.
Well, I was under the impression EMP's going regardless of any award, but they're not gonna break any ground, do anything until they know about the federal side, because why build something twice?
Correct.
So,
And that's true probably for a couple of the companies, moving forward no matter what, and we've maintained that. Now, can they build what they're proposing without any federal assistance? Probably not, they'll have to scale back a little bit, but yes, that's the plan, to move forward no matter what.
Well, that's very encouraging news for everyone to know, that we're not just solely dangling, waiting for the U.S. government to save the day,
Right.
so to say.
Right.
well, all the companies are still coming, the companies are still coming. It's just rather it's gonna be a huge deal or a scaled down deal.
Okay.
Right,
There is gonna be a project,
absolutely,
regardless.
yes.
But if the federal funding is available or gets granted to us, then it's gonna be
Correct,
the Happy Meal.
correct. To give you an idea, like just the EMP facility, just their equipment, not their building, just their equipment's gonna approach like 800 million, 700 million bucks. Just the equipment. This is stuff that's custom made in Austria and Italy and Japan. Japan, even though they're in Asia, they are very, they're on our team.
They're friendly in the nation.
Yeah.
Secure, Bob.
Yeah.
Measurably secure, yeah. Well, very well.
Well, very informative for me, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
I'd like to thank you, Gary.
Bobby,
May I have,
one question, and maybe either one of you can answer. So on the county side, maybe it's a government, maybe county as a whole, the school districts, with higher paying jobs coming in, that has the potential to take county employees, school employees. Is there something at the county level or local governments need to be doing in anticipation that some of their workforce, because if you have a higher paying job, then that may take away people from the county government, from the schools, from hospitals, and
Other
what,
businesses.
right, what needs to be done maybe as a preemptive move to try to figure out what's happening next. Does that make sense?
And that is a concern. So that's some of the questions that come out.
We've been working a lot with this workforce development area, and we're saying that the employees, our labor force for our projects here, they're in the 8th grade right now. They're in the 9th grade and the 10th grade. The idea is that we train our students, and we institute this new educational. We help out trickle down from the universities to the high schools into the elementary schools, where we start a new curriculum with new content in microelectronics, so that we can help retain some of our labor force while identifying the students with the aptitude and the potential to move on to college degrees in engineering, science, technology, engineering, math, and then on to doctorate degrees into the universities that we have as our affiliates. So we feel like our labor force are in our schools right now, not in our county workforce. We're very adamant about that.
So that helps answer some of the questions.
It
for
does.
you.
Yeah.
That still doesn't take away from the fact that even some of those folks that are still in the workforce right now couldn't be retrained, and if there was a higher paying job out there. I mean, that's a possibility.
That is a possibility that could happen. There'll be some attrition, but there'll also be some spaces to fill.
Sure. And what Wade brought up, that is a concern. I mean, a true concern. I guess not really a concern, but a worrisome
Yeah.
thing to look at. Because we want to retain our our people, you know, within our workforce.
It's gonna be replenishing our workforce when they retire is going to be.
It's gonna be the you're right.
It's gonna be harder.
Right, it will.
It's gonna have the potential for our local businesses that are, hopefully, most of them are thriving. It's gonna increase their cost. The chances are over time.
Over time.
And what time, and the cost, the wages they throwed out, does that include the fringe benefit, or is that just the hourly or salary job?
Talking about the 66 grand a year,
Yeah.
that does include benefits.
It does include the benefits?
Yes, sir.
So, to me, it's a little bit, I shouldn't say misleading, but to me, you know, the benefits are probably 10%. Maybe it depends if you're furnishing hospitalization, which gets in the benefit package real quick. So,
Well, and maybe I'm wrong, but my thought process on that was if that's the average wage, you're gonna have people up here making 200 plus.
yeah.
Right.
So
You
maybe,
have a 40 level.
You're right.
maybe some of our wages are not that far out of the realm of what these jobs are. A lot of them are gonna be below 60 then possibly.
Yes, sir.
I'm just thinking of it from an average viewpoint, and that's what they said, the average wage is the way I recall the information we got, so,
Yes, sir.
you know, but, yes,
That company,
good jobs, good benefits, I mean, that's great.
it's gonna be, that wage is gonna be all over the place. That KPN company, they're gonna have the highest wages out of everybody. Their average is probably gonna be over the 100.
I see,
And they'll have 7,500 people day one. They'll scale up to 300 or 400 within a year or two. But almost everybody, everybody in the KPN industry, factory is gonna be over 100 starting wage.
I see, okay. Well, just, my thought process is everybody's not gonna be making microchips, somebody's gonna be driving the forklift and loading the truck.
Yes, sir.
I mean, whatever that looks like, you know, I don't know.
Yes, sir.
Good update.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
If the commissioners would be okay, one more minute, or a few more minutes, Saban, if you want to give an update on where you're at with engineering and also
I can do that.
what you were tasked with last week.
Okay, good
We
morning.
can take care of Saban real quick.
I'm glad to have Garrett, because he could handle a lot of stuff right there, and that worked out very nicely for me, so. But I'll cover some of the technical stuff, because we're now providing information to Garrett and Bobby, but, the quick update I'll give for you guys related to this project are, we have completed the site plan, layout, for the actual 300-acre site up north. And it has been reviewed and approved, agreed upon by the companies, by the entities. That's important because that information was needed so these guys can have it in their letters of intent and their applications, because you know, now we have a conceptual drawing that can be put in place. We also did one that was kind of a 3D, very rough 3D rendering though, because with the lay of the land, one of the companies is needing a 2-story building, but the second story at ground level, so they can have entry and access. So with a little bit of the engineering we've been able to do, we actually see the site working out quite well, what we call balancing the earthwork, which is great. So, you know, again, very early in the process, but we think that that's an economy of scale that the project could benefit from, with earthwork being balanced on site. In that process as well, I kind of tell people, as your engineer, we're focused on I call them 4 buckets for us. It's the site engineering, it's the water, the wastewater. I'll throw power and gas in there, although that's more of a utility coordination part of it, and then the transportation improvements. So, because there will need to be some improvements made to Highway 75, Old 50, the way this site needs to be accessed and how it's secure. We've done a traffic analysis of the area. Our next step is to get some meetings with the Department of Transportation, KDOT, so we can present some of these results and start to fill them in about, I'll call it the numbers of traffic that are going to happen in the area. And we're prepared to make that next step. In addition to those 4 buckets, we were asked to put together cost estimates for this infrastructure. Again, we're very early. We haven't really, done design. We're kind of at about what we call conceptual design, maybe that 15 to 20%. But we do have good numbers to work with from the bidding process in the state of Kansas, such that we were able to provide infrastructure cost estimates for the whole in those areas. Now, these estimates we did do not include the buildings. The buildings are on the companies. That we're doing the work for have kind of the horizontal work, we call it, on the ground. We've provided those estimates to Garrett's team so they can begin to look at, because the companies have an interest on, I'll call it the apportionment, how much does each one have in their responsibility, and that's the work that they're working on now. The task that we were assigned last week, which is actually a very important piece, and it relates to the application process, is I'll call it the selection process for a program manager for this overall, when this thing begins to move from design into construction. Because the entities, as was mentioned, are kind of doing these individual applications, even though they're working as a consortium, there's the potential for multiple contractors working on this project site at any one time. And even if you think about it, even if you had one major general, there's going to be a lot of subconsult. This is a very big project. But in this case, there's a high likelihood of multiples working for the different companies. So there's a requirement that there be a program manager to handle kind of the oversight of all this, particularly if federal dollars come into play. But again, not just because of that, but there's an accounting process that's very important on a day-to-day basis from program management as you get into construction, daily logs, pay estimates, change orders, anything like that. There needs to be a responsible point person that's overseeing that operation. So we've been tasked to put together an RFP and begin to look at a solicitation process to select a program manager. I'm working on this personally very quickly, because our goal is actually, we want to be able to spell out the progress in this when they do their applications by March the 30th. That doesn't necessarily mean we'll have somebody selected, but we want to be able to say, here's where we're at in the process. So currently, I have a list of very competent companies that do this type of work. I've already had 2 meetings with 2 to gauge their level of interest in this type of work and this project. Working on a draft RFP this week so we can begin to have that vetted. And then my goal is to maybe reach out to 2 or 3 other quality companies, firms that can handle this type of work. The kind of 3 key areas that I've been given to focus on were the financial stability of any company that might be selected, their experience with similar type of projects, particularly these secure type facilities. And then we do need to be aware that, again, if there are federal grant dollars in the process, there needs to be some level of inclusion for disadvantaged businesses in whatever type of proposal there might be. So those are kind of 3 areas that we will focus on when we do the RFP. Again, my goal would be to have this process, the RFP, out before March the 30th, so that we then can speak to that when they're putting the applications together. That's kind of a, oh, I guess I should mention, you all directed us to begin getting geotechnical engineering boring samples on the site. That is scheduled to happen. We have surveyed the entire site. That information has been provided not only to the county but to the different entities that need it. So there's and now we've been working with Carl on the water and wastewater solutions. Again, I don't want to. We're not heavily into design. This is really conceptual engineering to begin to put these cost estimates together, so we kind of can get our arms around some confidence of what those budgets would need to be. And we feel pretty good about where we're at there right now. So with that, I think that's my update on where we're at engineering wise.
You know, the building side of this, Saban is a pretty good size, where it ends up being 100 acres, 200, whatever. And this don't make any difference. How close do they drill the borings to make sure they got a good test on it for the weight that's maybe hit it?
That's a great question. So, I'll say this, it's kind of a balance with the budget, of what we wanna manage in cost versus numbers. But those can be anywhere from, say, 100 to 200 feet in spacing. From your all's direction, we've got the idea that there was some rock kind of on the north end of that project site.
Rolling is what that
Yeah.
is. I'm sure there's rock there someplace.
Yeah, so we may concentrate a few more up there just to be a little more confident about what we have as far as rock. It'll be a spacing, we tend to have our geotech engineer, he'll put a grid map out with the locations, so that when our drill rigs go out, they know exactly where they're going out there.
So you'll have a grid map and then so many cores within that grid.
Correct.
You doing core drilling, or are you just doing drilling?
Core drilling,
So you're gonna core, you're actually bringing up product out,
Yep.
not just chips.
that's correct. I'm good.
We're supposed to be having some stuff with Highway 50 come out late August, September in the KDOT bid. Should we be getting a hold of them, and maybe they need to not do anything that first mile from 75 west?
So you've jumped where I was hoping I could give you a road and bridge quick update, because I did meet with Ryan and Kenny last week, and yes, I will say this, we had a discussion, and we made the decision we're gonna take the first mile out of the old Highway 50 project, because it will get improvements with this project. There's no, I would hate to see the improvements that are part of that proposal, which is, to be, in my world, minimal, in widening it up to get some guardrail and a little bit of shoulder, where we're talking about turn lanes, we're talking about different things happening with this site.
And you're talking about like 50-75 junction?
Yes.
Because that question has came up several times,
Yeah.
that's, right now it's somewhat dangerous as it is.
Don't you think that's probably, I mean, coming from the south, that's not a very safe intersection. Don't you think we're probably looking at a roundabout or something there?
Well,
to handle this
I'll say this
traffic?
from this traffic study, we have, a roundabout is an option. We haven't ruled anything out, but it's gonna be definitely turn lanes. It could be a roundabout, but definitely turn lanes, and it even could possibly be a traffic signal. Roundabouts work very well if you've got the right balance of traffic, so we need to kind of sort out when this site project goes, what does it do? Does it make the roundabout work effectively, or do we do something different?
And something else is the lighting out there. I mean, I'm just saying that's a real issue out there.
Dark intersection.
Dark intersection.
Yeah.
Coming from the north or the south, I assume that would be addressed at the top.
We would include that in any type of safety improvements that we would look at down the road. Yeah.
I just didn't think it was very smart to turn around and spend $2 million on that first mile and then tear it back up and
No.
have to redo it again.
No. Bobby's heard me say this is a more of a dream of mine that I've talked about with you guys before, is I could see the potential that once this project site gets built and gets going, that you may be looking at more improvements on Old 50 going west, because you have an interchange off of 35 at Lebo. You know, who knows what the growth of this site can do, that you may have more traffic issues on Old 50 that you need to do.
And that is a concern. I mean, that's a reality.
Yeah, but I think let's just take a piece at a time
Sure.
for now. So,
It's like that roundabout over at Garnett. The semi-traffic going in there now because of all the activity with the ethanol plant, it has eliminated some issues with wrecks. But semis have a hard time getting it. That thing
That's
is
pretty-
way too
They've-
small.
It is.
A lot of these newer ones, though, are way bigger, that are way better to navigate than, and this, I don't know why, they think they need to build these curbs straight up and down, where a sidewall hits the curb first rather than the tread. All the curbs are to be made on a 45 degree, so, you know, a big long load comes around there, it can drive up on it without damaging equipment. And bigger diameter, so they don't have to drive up.
You will drive on it at Garnett.
You will.
But it has got a slope, and it's not very high, so it's.
So they're actually,
Oh, it's pretty wicked
now
on
my
tires.
traffic
Yeah, it is.
engineering is dying to just share, cause cause everybody's got opinions on roundabouts. I'll say this, a lot of it has to do with the design standards, but those technically are to be designed as mountable curbs specifically for trucks. They're
Yeah,
supposed
for
to be
sure.
allowed
Bunch
to
of
drive
them
on
are
there.
not.
And, but again, it depends on how they're actually physically built.
Yeah,
And,
well, I understand most of them
Yeah.
are in the center,
Yeah.
but why make these curves where you come in and you turn? If there's snow there or something, somebody hits this curb, it damages the tire. It's just,
we're,
a trucker could engineer them much better.
I will, one last fact I'll share, which is the obvious, is, the roundabouts incredibly reduce accidents, and just incredibly reduce accidents. So this, from a safety standpoint, they're hugely
The
successful.
problem I would have with a roundabout or a stoplight, there's not very much distance from that hilltop to the actual intersection
Right.
for a stoplight or a roundabout. You got a big load going down the road or traffic backed up or something, they're gonna be on top of them just as soon as they come over that hill, and you're gonna have a lot more accidents.
From the south,
Stoplight,
yes,
yeah.
Yeah,
The visibility of the roundabout would be very important,
yeah.
you know, for approaching it.
They
Yeah,
really
yeah.
have to be warned further back.
And we all know nobody reads signs.
I know, but it's gonna be equally dangerous if there's nothing there and they come over that hill and there's merging traffic. It is kind of a
Again,
bad intersection.
I'm jumping the gun, but I would wager to say that once we get in discussions with KDOT, the improvements on 75, you know, we're not just talking about at the intersection, okay? There's going to need to be improvements that go north and south. So we might get into some of these issues of sight distance and things of that nature that are gonna be important to, we want it to operate safely for this huge development to work effectively.
Remind them that we're the only stretch of 75 that does not have shoulders on it.
I actually have that in my notes. You all have
Very
been
well.
very aware of that in my time.
Where they shave
I
it
don't know
up.
why, I wanted to ask the governor when she walked in down there, did you realize one thing, that was harder than come into Coffee County? We have no shoulders on 75 and everybody else does.
Proposed site, yeah.
One last thing, I don't want to underestimate mentioning that, you know, Carl's been great to work with. The utility issues are absolutely huge. Anytime you do a project like this, or even a traditional development project, you know, the first thing is getting utilities done. So when they talk about, when the schedule is talked about, that's the reason why we're talking to Bobby daily and saying, okay, how quickly can we start moving ahead with some of this preliminary engineering? Because my I won't say concern, but my expectation is, as Garrett said, when the go, they're going to want to go, and we're going to need to be producing design, and so just something to be aware of as we look down the road.
The only thing I wanted to add to what Sigmund was talking about, we have met with the Kansas Water Office and had a very good meeting with them. They want to see us succeed. They look very favorable about what we're proposing and doing. They'll give us some ideas of what we should be thinking about as far as water development for that area.
Yeah, let me add to that too. Carl set up that meeting. My entertainment of that meeting was that when Carl shared the numbers of volume that's needed for this project, their expression was like, oh, okay, wow, this is not just a normal project. But I think too, the other thing that was important about the Kansas Water meeting was they were very appreciative. They're used to having people submit an application when they're ready to build. And they were like, holy cow, no one brings us in early to help you plan.
Yeah.
And this is just too big of a project to not bring the right people together and plan for. We don't want to have a situation where we come up with a solution, the two of us or the group of us, and then we submit an application, they say no. It has to work. So the schedule won't allow it to not have worked through that process. So,
And it was absolutely a great interaction we had for 2 hours with them on giving us ideas, and they was running some preliminary models.
Yeah.
And give us some ideas to where we can make it applicable, make sure we use water efficiently and effectively in the Mendocino Valley.
It takes a lot of organizations to get all this off the ground, a lot.
So how does the infrastructure work in conjunction with, when we get the, say you get the okay to go, I mean, we've got funding, so is the infrastructure in before that time? How does that all join together? I mean, the infrastructure's got to be there before any.
That is a dangerous question, but if you don't mind, I don't,
Yeah.
so,
If I-
normally, Saban would be the person to ask, but here's, so there's a very, frustrating game that we play with this whole thing, which is weighing out the politics, that being able to shoot a bullet and make sure, like Carl said, when we ask for something, we want yes. We don't want, it's like with water rights, for instance, that's political.
Right.
It's also very costly, but it's a political issue. So we're balancing that. The funding that pays for these things, some of those still, or always have been, at least, this big unknown, where's the money coming that's going to pay the county back for the investment in the infrastructure. So the source of funding also dictates timeline. So once we identify where the funding's coming from, for instance, if it's coming through conventional grant programs with the state, that is putting our timeline way out. So we'll be building infrastructure after the company is saying they want to go vertical. To your question, if the funding sources are federal, we're going to be able to move fast and have the infrastructure in place before the companies decide to go vertical. In the instance now, so there's all these different pots of money, conventional grants. We're going to work those, hit hard, but we're also working the discretionary money from the state of Kansas. We're going to ask for money directly out of their budgets. Like for instance, KDOT has an economic development fund. And when DeSoto landed the Panasonic deal, they awarded the city of DeSoto, whose mayor works with Saban, was it $13 million or something like that?
Yeah.
And it was discretionary out of their budget. It wasn't through a grant cycle. It wasn't through a traditional conventional grant, but it was a grant. So they were able to start making, once they knew the money was coming, they were able to start building that infrastructure in advance of Panasonic.
And that's something that could happen possibly here.
Yes, sir, and it has to.
I mean, that, it has to, right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the thing to remember is when we had our water volume numbers, we presented to them, then we also explained that this is part of their process for what washing the disc, so when they do make these wafers, there's so many rinses involved to make sure that those wafers stay pure, so it takes a lot of water to do that. And that's why once we explained the process to them and educated them on what we was doing, everybody was, it was great to work with the entire time. And their exact words is, we want everybody to succeed.
So there's gonna be a water treatment plant on site, would be my guess, to take care of it.
I wouldn't call it necessarily a water treatment plant. They're gonna have, what we'll do is provide public water right to the property line, and they'll take it, and then they're gonna have what they call a deionization water. That'll be part of their processed water for cutting the disc, and then you'll have the ultra pure water, which will be part of the GAM Fab building, in which they wash those discs with. So they'll be having two process plants built within the buildings for their specialized process water. So saying that there's one on site, yes, it's a yes, no. Because they have to have their own they make their own process water. We will have no part of that.
We've also been very clear on the wastewater side, that the wastewater treatment facility that the county will build for this project, they must provide us clean wastewater, if you follow me, traditionally clean wastewater. So whatever they do in their process, they have to clean it as well before it comes to our waste treatment facility. So that's very important. Both of these points are very important because those are real dollars that are not being, in essence, put on your side of the ledger, that they have to handle. We don't want those EPA issues for you.
Got to be suitable for it.
So can a person turn around and supply them from that to, can you supply them the gray water out of that same cycle?
Well, we're waiting to find out what they've got designed in their plants before we can really,
See if we can-
answer that question, because there is recycling and reuse, and KWO wants to make sure that we're properly reusing the water that they would
Right.
discharge. I mean, that's one of their questions to us, and we're addressing it through the engineering study. Rick is spearheading this, where we would look at that. And so look, we're waiting for some information, waiting for some things to evolve with it as we go. Because there's new technology evolving with this as we go. I mean, I found a piece of literature 3 weeks ago talking about maybe, you know, that they have some ideas now to where they can recycle 80% of water, but it's a brand new technology. And so, you know, it's still working some bugs out of it, but there's brand new stuff happening every day with it.
And what's the projected water use per day, roughly?
Right now, we're looking at 4 to 6 million.
Wow.
4 to 6 is what we're looking at. As they continue to refine the project, and we look at the wafer use and how many wafers are produced, will dictate the final number.
That's a lot of water. It's a lot of water.
It's a lot of water, and that's why
So,
KWO is willing to work with us. And
Yeah, coming back to your question too, full circle, Bobby's answer is correct, but in my mind, as the engineer traditionally, I think water comes first, okay? Just again, if we really sort this out, because water is needed for construction, water, I mean, there's a lot of things. You can build access roads with rock and gravel. The rest of the infrastructure can come along shortly after, but water probably drives this initially, so they can get active with putting their construction.
Sure.
And the site excavation, site grading. Those two pieces are pretty key.
Okay. We've had great open conversations between us and CFS.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting with the sources, I've met with Public Wholesale 12 to keep them in the loop the entire time.
So now that we've got everybody, is there, and I think I visited with Bobby just a little bit, do we really see anything turning of dirt, on this 300 acre property before October?
I will put this way, he might hit me when I say this, but if they get an answer that's affirmative in, let's just say September, okay, and these companies want to go, we're going to be tasked with having a site grading set of plans ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
So my expectation is we're probably in short order going to need to start those site grading plans to completion. Maybe it's late summer, I'll just say, so that if that green light goes, somebody can start putting grading out on the street.
Okay.
But prior to that is this program management piece, because I'd rather have that group kind of begin to work with us and figure out, okay, let's actually really map out the pieces that we see need to go forward, particularly because each of these companies has kind of got an individual process going. So that, it's a little complicated right
So
now.
August would probably be a fair, probably August.
I would say later.
It's probably gonna be later. I'm just, this is gonna be for another topic later on.
Yeah.
That we're gonna be discussing, so
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out some times. of
Okay.
Probably nothing before October, unless you're gonna drill a hole here, drill a hole there. That's all it's gonna be.
That would be my guess.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
That was my one and only
Okay.
question.
Well, again, we'll keep plugging away.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Let me see that, hold on, I have one other road and bridge item, hang on, let me see here. Oh, I do have one, a couple things. So we did make the choice on 1 mile of Old 50. I did look at, there are a few riverbank stabilization issues that Road and Bridge is running into. And, in talking to Ryan and to Kenny, I wanted to recommend that maybe there's another smaller firm that probably could get to that work a little quicker. Blackstone Environmental, that's the type of work that they can handle. It's a smaller group. In talking to those guys, I think they have in the budget they could mobilize that group, and they wanted me to okay it as the county engineer. We're okay with that because we're kind of focused on some other projects and some other pieces. But, if that's something that you all, would consider, we can direct, I can direct those guys to, we can start the process of at least,
Is this for 50 highway?
No,
No,
these are for
okay.
other
Other
there's like
sites.
3 or 4 other sites that, Ryan said, hey, we just, we're having trouble getting to them. They're busy, we're busy, we're just trying to keep things moving.
Bring Blackstone in to do a little bit of, engineering on
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Well, we have Blackstone to work for the landfills, is that right? Aren't they the ones that oversee the landfill?
You know, I think that's right, Jesse.
I
We
believe-
got quite a few, engineering companies working with us off and on. I think Blackstone's.
I believe they are doing the landfill. But, these are not, I mean, I can't give you an estimate, these are not huge issues, it's just, somebody to do a site visit, get pictures, kind of come up with, a solution that the road and bridge folks can implement.
I don't see a problem with it, I mean.
Well, there's a lot of cut banks on this river, and
Yeah.
and it's just gonna continue to get worse at a rapider pace because the river's up and down.
Yeah.
It's more up and down than it is on a consistent level, and of course, that's the Corps taking care of that. Hopefully they're doing the right thing for them as well as us.
Right.
We do have a lot of cuts.
That's right. That's all I had. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl, you got anything else for us?
No, we're just tagging in with these guys.
Tagging in with those guys? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yes, let's take a break. We'll come back at 10:36. We'll take a 10-minute break.
Wow, that's a lot to ingest.
I guess, Mr. Bowie, you have the start of roundtable today.
So, couple things, first one, to follow up on last week, with Sheriff Johnson and the minutes that were pulled from, 2012 regarding disposition of an indigent body. Do you recall that
Right.
conversation?
Yes, sir.
So after last week's meeting, some discovery had to be made about what exactly was going on in reference to and I want to be sensitive to somebody's loved one passing away, but the body and where it was, how it got there, and who was responsible is ultimately what had to be figured out. So the county has a district coroner. The coroner was involved, and through the discovery process, it was learned that the remains of the body had made their way to Iola, and were sitting at the Orborn Family Funeral Home in Iola. That funeral home has a refrigeration system, so that's something that's important, because if you have refrigeration, and I don't know the whole ins and outs of funeral homes, but if you have refrigeration, then you can hold a body without having having to do something immediately, and that's currently where the body is. So maybe just a little bit of law relating to bodies, when you have a deceased person and their remains. So KSA 65-1734 is basically the statute that deals with the priority of people in line if something happens to a body. So under that statute, the following persons in order of priority may order any lawful manner of final disposition of the decedent's remains, including burial, cremation, entombment, or anatomical donation. So number one in the priority level, if you have a durable power of attorney, and that durable power of attorney for healthcare decisions, they have the authority pursuant to that durable power of attorney to make decisions concerning disposition of the decedent's remains. Number two, the spouse of the decedent. Number three, surviving adult children. Number four, surviving parents. Number five, persons in the next degree of kinship. 6, a guardian of the decedent at the time of the person's death. Number 7, personal representative of the decedent. Number 8, indigent. If you have somebody who's indigent, it falls to the responsibility of the state or county, the public official charged with arranging the final disposition. And then there's a section that deals with the military. So in this particular situation, it's my understanding the individual is indigent, and the district coroner is the one responsible with sort of delivering the remains of somebody who's deceased in the order of priority, but there's a time limit for that. So the time limit had run, and the coroner was next trying to figure out what to do with the person next. So as it relates to final disposition of the body of the deceased, you then turn to KSA 25A-215, which says, the coroner shall cause the body of a deceased person to be delivered to the immediate family or next of kin. If no such delivery is required, the coroner shall cause the body of such deceased person to be cremated or buried. If you have an indigent person, cremation or burial expenses shall be paid from any property found with the body. If there is no such property found with the body, or if the property is not sufficient to cover expenses, such expense shall be paid from the county general fund, which then gets the commission involved. So, with that in mind, we'll have to figure out, and we may do it by resolution at a later date time after contacting all the local funeral homes to see what their what the local arrangement would want to be in. How many funeral homes do we have in the county? I know we have one in Burlington,
3, isn't there?
one in Lebo, and
One in Leroy, isn't there?
Yeah.
So we'll have to work out an arrangement with them and figure out what needs to happen from this point forward. But my understanding is there's a minimal expense to dispose of the remains of a body. And speaking with the Iola Dearborn Funeral Home, they have an arrangement with the county commissioners in Allen County and the county commissioners in Neosho County that anytime this happens, then they submit a statement, and that statement covers removal, mileage, refrigeration, and cremation. And that arrangement with Allen County, which is the rate that the funeral home in Iola has submitted to me to present to you, is $1,000. So if you recall, the original arrangement at one point in time was, back in 2012, I think, $750. So it doesn't seem in that time period that $1,000 is out of line. In fact, the arrangement, it sounds like with Neosho County, is $1,500.
Biggest thing is gonna find somebody that has refrigeration.
Yeah, and I don't know how rare that is, but at least they do in Iowa, and that's, they originally told me when I talked to them that they normally charge for refrigeration per day $100 per day. They've not charged that because this is a unique situation. I've not run into this since I've been here, and it's probably been a while since this situation has come up, but it's something that could happen again, and we need to be prepared. So for today, here's the motion I'm proposing. Motion to authorize the chairman to sign, with the approval of the county attorney, pursuant to the authority contained in KSA 65-1734 and KSA 22A, small a-215, the claim of authority to carry out final disposition and authority to cremate, which is this form I'm gonna hand out, and I can give you copies if you want, for a sum of $1,000 as submitted by Fairborn Family Funeral Service, located in Iowa, Kansas, to cremate and dispose of the remains of an indigent Coffee County resident, funds to be paid from county general fund, and I'm not sure what line item that needs to come from. The name of that individual is within the statement and the claim of authority to carry out final disposition and authority to cremate. But I'm not stating their name out of respect for their privacy. If somebody wants to see who it is, I guess they can file an open records request and they can get it that way, but I'm not saying it here. I don't think it needs to be said here. So,
I'll move.
Second that.
Moved by Knight, seconded by Thompson. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
and I'll hand it here. There's the statement and the companion document if you each want to flip it around and
Yeah, I think the Leroy Funeral Home's owned by the one in Lebo. I think they're the same. Isn't it over in Arsdale? Owns both of them.
I think it is, Jess.
Just be them two in Burlington.
do we need to designate somewhere in the general, where it's coming out of in the general fund, or just general fund? Do you know?
I do not know. Jessica is right around the corner and does know.
But as that statute said, that's where it's to come from, so.
I think it'd just have to be the general fund,
And it may just be the
401.
flat general fund.
They've got some subcategories, but I'm sure the general
Don't
fund.
need to specify,
Okay.
because they already pay like for coroner calls for transportation and autopsies and that sort of thing, so it's actually probably cheaper than what that sort of thing costs.
Yep.
But she said no specific line, just general.
Okay. The next topic, and I think Jesse alluded to it, is the lease for the property that we've been working on with the Baileys for a period of time. And what may be the most helpful is I have a signed lease that has circulated to them. They've approved it, but now it has to be approved on this end. Some of the language is a little bit different because we didn't know, originally it was 3 to 6 months, and I guess I can stand it. 3 to 6 months, but with not knowing how quickly things would be moving on the chip side of things, that would impact or dictate what that timeline was. And there had been conversations at one point in time about something happening as early as the beginning of July. So what we didn't know was when that would happen. So there's a mechanism within the lease that they've agreed to that begins the lease on April 13, 2023 through July 13th. I guess at a minimum, July 13th and a maximum of October 13th, depending on what happens. If July 13th is the day, then by May 15th, the county has to provide them written notice of the intent that it's only going to be a 3-month lease. If not, then it automatically turns into a 6-month. Within that agreement, there's also the ability to extend, but a renewal period by written agreement and consent of both parties to another 3 to 6 months. And, the Baileys are okay with that. I've spoken to them. But they need to know and be given enough advance notice so that they can plan accordingly, if it's 3 months, if it's 6 months, because they need to get their life in order as well. The agreed to monthly rate is $2,500. They're responsible for their own utilities, for maintenance of the property, so they have to have insurance on the house, renter's insurance to cover anything that goes along with that. There was an initial conversation about when would the rental month begin? Would it begin at the beginning of the month? To make it easier, since their 120 expires on April 12th, April 13th made the most sense. So from April 13th to May 13th, that's month 1, and then so on and so forth. So they have to have payment by personal check or money order paid to the county on that timeline. So that's their first of the month. Those are the highlights of what the agreement is.
You know, chances are no dirt will be moved until mid-June, and we're talking about 3 to 6 or 3 to 6 or more. Can we work with a moving target on a contract with them? Move it every 30 days, that once we realize we may or may not need it as a specific date?
I don't think we need, I mean, my understanding is they were not comfortable with a month to month. They needed more.
I remember we talked, but I don't.
But I also understand that depending on if something happens, they would, with sufficient notice, they would potentially be flexible. But having something to at least give them some breathing room, I think, is what they wanted, because, you know, that property and what it entails, that they'd have to figure out already in what is a short period of time what to do with their things. And I think they already have some things moving in the background from what I understand, but this gives them a cushion, and probably 3 months is pretty tight for some people. 3 months is not that far away.
No.
But I think Jesse's mentioned it multiple times before, having somebody in that house who knows everything that goes with that house and property is very important to the county, because if there's nobody there, that's a whole nother story.
Well, and Kevin and Amy are gonna take care of it, just because that's what they do.
And I received an email or a text message from Kevin last night that stated, the water heater has developed a dripping leak. Wanted to know what you wanted to do about it. Do you want us to just fix it and take it off the first month's rent? I said, get it fixed, we will pay for it, which means the county. He called Rich Mason in Burlington, whoever that is. So, if nobody had been there, we wouldn't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know.
Dripped how far?
Yeah, how far. Drip turns into a run, and a stream turns into a mess, so. I mean, that was just, he contacted me, I didn't know. That was at 9 o'clock last night.
Sure, I mean, something has to be done. So, being proactive about those type of things is especially important. So I want to initially talk about it. I think before you make any decisions, you look at it, and I meant to print off copies, and I was going back and forth, but so you can see the language, and then at the end of the meeting, after you've gone through roundtable, then make a decision on whether you want to take a week and look at it, read it over, or go ahead and sign and execute it. But if you wait a week, then Tom has the opportunity to take a look at it as well. I just want to let you know this has been moving behind the scenes. Jesse has been the only one who's been a part of it, and then at a certain point that I solely started communicating with the Baileys because all Jesse was an additional email, and they wanted to speak with me directly about some of the terms, so that's where that is.
I'd like to see us try to get it done if we could. They need to have an agreement.
Yeah, they need to know where they stand.
I don't think it bother Tom at all, I mean, as long as everybody agrees to it.
Second part of that is the land that is also a part of this property. It's my understanding that there's been an agreement with the Baileys for the last 5 to 6 years to have it paid, some sort of rental agreement that deals with paid and I forget what the other thing is.
Farm ground.
Yeah, farm ground. So I'm working with the individual who has done that for a period of time to put together some sort of rent agreement that captures what happens, but with the understanding that, you know, we're a moving target here, and if something happens with the land, then it may impact that.
Are there two, Hay and Farm, is it the same entity? Is it the same individual?
Yes.
So that'd make it simpler to,
So do we think we wanted to have farming involved in it? I mean, the thing about the grass is, if we start action, I mean, you know, we just take that many acres out, but if they've got money invested in a crop, and maybe we've got time that they'd make it to harvest, I don't know.
how many acres is on that place for farm ground?
There's, I believe there's 30 acres of farm ground, and it is in wheat right now.
I was gonna say, I think
So it would be the 4th of July-ish that it would be off, more than
Okay.
likely.
I thought.
Yeah,
And then nothing after that. That's what I would say.
And all the rest of it.
I wasn't aware of that, Jesse.
Right, yes.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I wasn't aware of that.
Mhm.
I thought we were looking at.
It's on that it's on the east portion, up on the hill,
Right on the hill, isn't it? Right
Mhm.
south of the,
existing, that other house that's
Right,
there.
right. I thought I saw it greener.
So,
So you're dealing with one entity is what you're doing?
Yes.
Good.
And I think the important part for right now is to move forward, they need to put down fertilizer and spray. I
Yeah.
don't think, if they weren't gonna be able to move forward like they have in previous years, then they probably would take that time and effort to do that.
Yeah, if it's wheat, they need to get it taken care of because it's already green enough.
So,
Get it done pretty quick, 'cause it'll track pretty hard.
It'll track yeah.
April 1st, it'll track all the hard.
It will. Once the warm weather hits, why it's growing.
and I'm going to intentionally keep Jesse out of it, and that's for good reason. One of his family members is tied to that, and that's why it's important when I check that this has been ongoing for 5 to 6 years, but
Sure.
for the appearance of transparency and to make sure that it's done the right way, he needs to be out of it. And
Sure.
So any decisions, anything that deals with this particular part of that property, I'm not sure which one of you would be the best one to contact, possibly you, Wade.
I don't care.
So that's that. Those are really the two main updates that I had for today.
that's all you got for us today?
Spring break week. So,
What's that mean?
well, I don't know.
It's just another week. Wait till next week.
Yep.
Gonna hammer us next week, aren't you?
I hope not. Today would have been the better day with everything going on.
I agree.
Do you have any questions for me? Anything you need to?
I didn't have anything for roundtable today.
Well, and I don't wanna get into any issues, I don't wanna get into any trouble, but if this water heater issue turns out to be, you know, X amount of dollars to fix, what's the mark on that before a person has to get a bid on it? Do we need to worry about that? I believe this is the guy that installed the system. And as you remember seeing that system, it is quite complex and very nice. It's very neat.
I mean, I think if it gets over $10,000, then probably need to.
Okay.
But
Sure they were okay.
I would
Other well the stream, so
think.
But it's gotta be finished.
Yeah, it's gotta
it doesn't, I mean, is there some kind of a provision when something needs fixed
yeah, there's
on an emergency type deal?
the emergencies take priority, so it's happened here. This is just a unique situation because we have a property a house that the county doesn't necessarily want to own, but they're owning it as a part of the whole.
Temporarily, basically.
And at some point in time, that property will pass on to somebody.
It doesn't look like a valve or something.
he didn't go into.
He didn't have it.
He didn't go into, you know, all of that's PEX, everything that run into it is PEX. I mean, it could be as much as a line swelled or shrinked
That's what I
or
wondered, might
something,
be
you know? I mean, I don't know, so.
But whatever it is, it's gotta get
Yeah, the
fixed.
end result may not be as bad as.
It might not be,
Yeah,
but
might be a $200 fix, it might be a $3,000 fix, I don't have any idea, so. I just told him to keep me informed on it, so. Can't shut it off.
I'm having a Zoom meeting with Christina from HR Partners, Angie, and the sheriff on Thursday at 2:00. That's to cover, they provided, HR Partners provided updates to the policy manual based on the most recent recommendations, have incorporated some language regarding comp time, sick time, or overtime, comp time, to distinguish the two, that's in line with what the law requires. Modified some of the other provisions based on the last meeting. The reason why there's a meeting with the sheriff is to not only go over some of the revisions, but there's, the manual is written in a way where it does not differentiate between a regular 8 to 5 employee and law enforcement who don't work 8 to 5. And there at least needs to be a sentence probably clarifying if you're law enforcement, then the way that it's written, it doesn't apply. But I mean, I met with the sheriff and undersheriff and his administrative assistant last week and went over some of the provisions, and my whole document is flagged. So that's gonna happen. Hopefully that document will be ready to be turned around and back to the board very soon. Now, Jesse won't be happy about this, and maybe the rest of you won't, but as a result of some of the changes that were made, the document has grown a little bit. And I know that's not something that makes you happy, because the shorter the better, but I think it's out of necessity. And there are some other internal changes that probably need to be brought up and presented to the board for clarification as well. So
Well, it's gotta be right. When it comes out, it's gotta be right. Even though it's maybe another paragraph longer, it's gotta be right. So,
Still be, it needs to be as right as what we can possibly get
Yeah,
to kick it off, and chances are,
somebody's still picking.
it'll be a change, there'll be a process and change down the road.
The goal is to avoid department heads from having to come in and have you, as a board, in an open meeting like this, explain your intent and what you meant by whatever it is.
Right.
We've done a decent job for the most part over the last few years. Whenever those questions would come up, sort of dealing with them behind the scenes, which is what should happen. I've had a number of department heads ask for my assistance in dealing with, whether it be, an oral, written reprimand of some sort, or escalating it up to the point where somebody needs to be terminated, and that should happen behind the scenes, because you should be involved at the end of it, if it comes down to it, and hopefully it doesn't come down to it. And that's just an example of the grievance process. You shouldn't be involved in the grievance process at all unless you absolutely have to. And so on and so forth. But behind the scenes, some FMLA issues have come up, and they've been dealt with and been handled through the clerk's office, through staff there, and going through the right channels. It shouldn't come to you. But if the document you have that describes that process isn't clear enough, then you have people who ask questions, rightfully so, because you can have one word and it can be interpreted multiple different ways if it's not clear enough. That's why the description helps. Sometimes it makes it more muddy, but the law, as you know, is ever evolving and ever changing, and if it wasn't changing, they wouldn't have legislative sessions that last for months and months each year. The one that always got me was the word shall. You think is that it's a done deal, right? Except for there's case law that says in certain instances the word shall is either directory or it's mandatory. How does that make any sense? The word shall means so if it's just directory, that means, well, it's almost shall, but it's really not.
Kinda like the word could.
Yeah. And I've had to deal with that, where we go into the courtroom and it's like, well, I know it says shall, but it sort of means may in this instance. And then you have to go back and look at the legislative intent, and you get attorneys involved, and then they really mess things up. So, that's the last thing that I have, unless you have something else. If so, then I'll make a copy of this. You can take a look, and then you can decide what you want to do.
Steve, do you have any roundtable stuff?
I don't, today.
Don't?
No, I'm good shape.
Wade?
Batting 100.
Angie has a few things.
Okay.
Just a reminder, I sent you guys that email on Friday about the KNRC lawsuit on the Lesser Prairie chickens, with all of that information, so that's just a reminder. And then, KDOT Southeast Kansas District 4 Spring Meeting is March 29th at the KDOT office in Chanute. Ryan Durst is going, and it says that he would encourage a county commissioner to attend.
Okay.
Yeah, I spoke with Ryan this morning to clarify that, and he said,
What date was that?
March
usually,
29th.
usually someone would go, and from your discussion here about Highway 75 and such, it's probably a good idea for somebody to show up with Ryan, get acquainted with the folks.
It's
And that's
only
where?
for
Iowa?
Chanute.
Chanute.
Yep, it's only for road officials and commissioners.
He wasn't sure on the time, you'd have to get with him if you were gonna go. He said it usually runs 9 to noon, and it'll be KDOT and then people from that District 4
And he said that there is some real good information, he said, usually about what they're looking at bridge work-wise and that sort of thing. So he said it's worthwhile to show up.
I mean, what day that's on a Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday.
Are we signing checks and vouchers that day?
No, those are
They're for the
being signed on Monday.
27th, Monday,
27th.
okay.
Register cycle.
I could possibly make it if nobody else can.
I maybe could, you know.
I don't have
Talk to him
nothing else
about those
down
curbs. You could talk to him about those curbs.
Yeah, curbs on the
Yeah.
roundabout. Oh, they're a thorn in my side.
Is that enough? What do we need?
So if you leave one there with Tom.
Okay.
Is that all you have? Yeah.
Just special issues and then, statements or something.
Do I?
That's the name of the article.
But it gets right to the point.
No, it was, that was in the chair.
Yeah, I think he's
How many times was the word leaseor and leasee used in this document, Wade?
Several.
About 10 times in that one paragraph.
I got confused when I read it the first time, I was like, I don't even know what I am.
And it had to be, written in a way to comply with the Landlord Tenant Act as well,
Right,
so.
right. Well, you know, I mean, it's pretty simple, it's not 85 pages long, you know.
I mean, that first paragraph is because of the mechanism that
Mhm.
it would have been just easier just to say 6 months, but.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and like I say, you gotta try to cover all the bases, but there's still things that's,
So, we're describing it well enough. What is being leased to them, aren't we? It says premises located at that address, including an adjacent shop storage building. I mean, that describes the area we're leasing well enough, wouldn't it?
I think so,
I mean, I don't
think-
see anything wrong with the rest of it, just skimming over it.
And there's in the utility section, it talks about taking care of all utilities, the lawn care.
And everything, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the whole idea there is curb and appeal. So at some point in time in the future, and I'm not sure when that is, figuring out where the boundary lines are, where it's gonna be cut off, so that when the county does make a decision to sell the property as a whole, is that 5 acres, is that 10 acres, what does that include? Because that
Right.
will that will probably want to be done in the somewhat near future, so that whoever comes in and has, you know what it is that's going to be sold, and that way you can get what the fair market value is on it, because there is a process and a mechanism the county will have to go through to sell it. And
Right.
behind the scenes out there, and I'm sure some of you have heard it, because I've heard it as well, that the county was selling that property back to the Baileys for a discount. And, it's where that saying comes in, don't believe anything you hear and only half of what you see.
That, and I've heard that, the county was going to, tear it down, just destruct it.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
go ahead.
so the idea, my understanding is eventually to sell it, and it would have to be sold for what the fair market value is. It would have to be, or more than that.
Mhm.
Sure.
The county would always take more, I'm sure, but at least for what the value of it is. And when that time comes, it will be valued, and the county will take no less than what its value is for the house, the shop, and the surrounding property, whatever that carve out is.
Right, and
Well, I
that,
know Saban has been drawing out and marking boundary lines along with the plan for the buildings up there, the new buildings, and so the one diagram I seen is it abolishes the lagoon that is there,
that was my question.
because there's a building on top of it.
So
And
that'll have
so,
to be addressed.
that's gonna have to be addressed. Is that property going to be into a sewer system that's gonna be built for the cluster? And so that was what was given to me, was the plan
Yeah.
when that comes around, but there's gonna be a point in time that there's not gonna be anything there, as we all more than likely know. So, I mean, you get your sewer systems in and your water lines and everything in, maybe it'll be connected and before they put a building up, so I don't know, so. But it is happening in the background with that group, and so,
So if the lagoon gets knocked out, then until the water lines are in, because they probably wouldn't be in before the lagoon that got knocked out, there need to be another new lagoon put in closer to the house, at
Or
least
maybe-
temporarily, and I'm not sure what the cost of that is, but that would,
$6,000 to $8,000 probably.
Yeah, I mean, move it, or probably not a tank and laterals or anything. I mean, probably another lagoon would probably be the cheapest thing, and that doesn't cost much, and then it still could be hooked up to the sewer system later. That would, I don't think it's feasible to keep it where it's at myself, but that's too far away.
The biggest issue is having the lagoon far enough away from adjacent properties to make it code, compliant is gonna be the major issue. Because you're backing up right behind that shed, you're backing up to their concrete pretty quick.
Has Carl taken a look at it? I mean, has he?
I don't know if I haven't, I don't think I visited with him about it.
Maybe a septic system would be
I'm sure,
cure, temporary cure, whatever, if they had to.
I mean, that's just a bridge that can be crossed.
It's just gonna take time to decide.
I mean, as far as this contract, I reviewed it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, something like that, so. I don't have any problems with the contract.
I mean,
it's covered the essence, I think, of what the county wanted. It's 3
Yes.
months, so we just need to have an idea by May 15th, if it's gonna be 3 months, which would then give them notice, written notice, that the county intends to exercise the 3-month option within the agreement, or if no notice is sent, then it automatically will become 6 months. October will be the end date.
I think it's fine.
But that had to be done because at one point in time, and I think through some of the earlier questions, knowing what's happening with that property overall, impacts probably what happens with this house. But at the same time, you don't wanna go into the fall and into next winter without anybody being in that house, because then you end up with somebody having to go and check on it all the time. I have property in Michigan that hopefully will get sold soon, that I've dealt with nobody being in that house, and I've had furnaces go out, issues with water, and it's been a nightmare, because I can't just hop on a plane and be there, or drive up the road and be there. At least that's something that can happen.
That's not what we want.
Do we wanna sit on this another week, or do we wanna go ahead and move on this?
That's your call. I think it's in a spot right now where the Baileys have signed it, and I think now unless you have any changes, which it doesn't sound like it, then waiting a week isn't gonna hurt anything. It'll get
We can wait till Tom gets back.
signed and executed,
They
and
need to either way, really. If we did it now,
Let's just get it off our plate.
that's what I think.
Move to authorize direct the chairman to sign, agreement between Coffee County as the leaseor and Kevin and Amy Bailey as leasee for the house property at 1234 Old Highway 50, Coffee County, Kansas, including adjacent shop storage building. Sum of $2,500 per month, up to a 6-month lease. I think that's it, isn't it?
probably to begin.
To begin at midnight, April 13th, 2023.
April what?
So you've made the motion. then,
April
Jesse.
13th, yeah, the motion has been made.
I'd second that.
Knight moved, Thompson seconded. Any discussion, more discussion? Hear none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. You've got the original for signature, or just sign one?
They emailed it, so,
This good enough?
yep.
You'll fill in the blanks?
Yes.
Okay. And here's that other, the deceased. And I didn't have any, what round table I've discussed has already been, or we've already talked about.
Give me that. Just need signed.
Yep. Full signature on that one and then initial the rest of them. Thank you, Wade.
Yep. Thank
Have
you.
Have a good spring break.
I'll be working on stuff. I'm, helping, I don't know if I'm first chair, second chair in a Osage County jury trial for a high-level case where they ask for some help, and that starts the 27th.
I noticed in the paper this week, we had 25 inmates. I wonder how many is out of county? That's a little larger number.
When you say out of county, whether we have some out of county?
Well, whether some of ours are out of town. That was based on the date of February 27th. I think our numbers are up.
I will tell you that there's been a push behind the scenes to get people out of the jail. So we've been at capacity several times to the point where we're having to farm out, and the main reason to farm out is so that if more people are taken into custody over the weekend or at night, then there's bandwidth for them to be booked in. You know, male-female population ends up being an issue too, when you don't have enough space, for instance, to house a female, or if you have co-defendants or something of that nature. So I don't see that getting any better anytime soon. It is what it is. The jail roster explains who you have and why they're there, and
I think the vouchers we signed last month, there was 4 of them. It was out of county for almost a whole month. I think it was 31 days for 4 of them.
There are a number of them that are being housed out of county, and you will see another bill that same way, and that shouldn't change in the near future unless some people get out of jail.
Or they quit playing dumb games to get in jail.
And you probably see from some of the notices the sheriff has put out that there's activity, and that activity is, I don't think that activity changes.
Did they catch the one that was up north line?
I think still an ongoing investigation.
Oh, okay.
You thought they had some idea who it was, though, is that correct?
I think they have an idea, but I have to be careful what I say.
Okay. We won't ask that question.
Yeah, as long as they wouldn't chase us,
Wade.
we're all right.
Wade too.
As you see at the very back end of any press release, it says, all suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So.
Right, I understand, I shouldn't have asked.
No, you're fine. I think it's good for public awareness, especially when you have something that happens, and, you know.
Yeah.
If you have a
Pretty active deal, I mean.
If you have a case and people are concerned that, are they gonna have someone kick in their back door or try to steal their car or something like that, the public needs to be aware.
Head-on collision going the wrong way, and we're kind of getting up there a little bit.
So those are very important factors, but there's also the ethical rule that I have to follow that talks about pretrial publicity, and, you know, Mark will make requests for certain documents from the court to be turned over, and I have a response that basically follows the rules of ethics. I think, have you seen that, Mark? It basically says, I don't think anything should be turned over because that's my duty as a prosecutor is to not have pretrial publicity, and in a way that's pretrial publicity. And the goal is to not affect or contaminate your jury pools. so that if you do go to jury trial, somebody has a fair trial.
Right.
Right.
I don't think present time, we have the kind of cases that generate, or if they did, change of venue requests, but years ago, it was Crawford County, the Gary Kleifus case, this was the first death penalty case after the death penalty was reinstated in the early 90s. And that case had so much pretrial publicity that there was a motion to change the venue. Venue was changed, and I think they held that case in Wyandotte County, or somewhere to the north. And the change of venue in that particular case, from what I understand, almost bankrupt Crawford County, because everything to do with that case had to be paid for by Crawford County. Now, I don't think we have the kind of cases here, at least right now, that would, in my opinion, I have to say it in my opinion, because the judge may disagree, justify the change of venue in a case because of potential pretrial publicity. But in reality, that's what that's about. You have to have press releases, you have to be able to inform your public of what's happening, but at the same time, you just have to be careful about the type of facts that you present, because that can affect your jury pool.
He wasn't leaving yet. When we did a resolution for Tim on this NSG, whatever it is, did we not, was that resolution so he could be a vote in Coffee County's behalf of the NSG? Is that right? It had to be a proxy, we had to do a proxy resolution for Tim?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and see what that said, because I think there was some, I thought he wasn't gonna be
He had to become a proxy. We had to do a resolution naming him as proxy voter of the NSG, I think.
I'd have to go back and look at it. I remember the conversation.
So that's why I was wondering about this deal coming up, what is it, this coming Friday, I think, that we're all supposed to vote on. I just didn't know if there could be one person vote. That's what I was under the impression that he was.
And what was that on?
The chicken, the prairie chicken. There's an email sent out about the prairie chicken. It's about I think it's something.
Yeah, the Western prairie chicken.
Yeah.
But there's more involved than just the prairie chicken deal with this issue, isn't there?
Well, it's coming, yeah.
I mean,
It is
it's
coming.
Tim's gonna be here
federal
Monday.
government.
Monday or the next Monday. I think it's this Monday Tim's gonna be
I
here.
think it's just coming Monday. And then I think that email, wasn't that email, was it this Friday or next Friday? I can't remember.
It's the 16th. It's when the,
So it's this Thursday is when we're supposed to get on and vote
yep, that's when their Zoom meeting is, at 11 o'clock.
at 11 o'clock.
And then Tim will be here on the 27th.
Okay, so Tim's not gonna be here prior to, so we'll have to be on the Zoom meeting to vote. I'm thinking, how's that work, Wade, where all of us are on the same Zoom meeting? Or is there just one?
And what are we voting on? I mean,
Hold on.
I should have read my email, I guess, and maybe I did, but.
I'm not informed enough.
Do I?
I'm not informed enough.
Those were so many pages on that one deal. I'm not
Yeah, there
sure.
is.
You
And
can
there's,
read the whole thing, probably not know everything.
and there's legislation already involved, I think, with the lesser prairie chicken.
It says a KNRC members to submit votes on lesser prairie chicken lawsuit. And it's a lawsuit against,
It says the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service published a final rule in the Federal Register listing the northern distinct population segment of the lesser prairie chicken as a threatened species, Kansas, Colorado, Oklahoma, and the northeastern portion of the Texas Panhandle, and the southern DPS as endangered in New Mexico and 7 West Texas counties under the Endangered Species Act. The final rule, which was originally scheduled to go into effect January 24th, was later delayed by Fish and Game until March 27th. It has come under fire from the Kansas congressional delegation and state legislators, including a 60-day notice of intent to sue. KNRC member counties represent the majority of the geographically defined LCC range in Kansas. KNRC will host a webinar for all member counties with Charles Yates, attorney for Pacific Legal Foundation. The webinar will be recorded and made available on the Facebook group page KNRC member counties following the meeting. 1 vote per county.
one vote per county. See,
Okay,
that's what
one
I
vote
was,
per county.
that's what I was thinking is the reasoning behind us doing a proxy resolution, naming him proxy for Coffee County, so he could vote on items like this, in the best interest of Coffee County.
Yep. So if you have a consensus of what you're wanting to pass on to them, then
So the yes vote will be to engage KNRC as the plaintiff in the lawsuit, a no vote will be for KNRC to not engage in the lawsuit.
Which is to engage in the lawsuit to stop this legislation from going through, is the way I'm understanding it.
Yes. No vote against the PLS litigation.
Because it's really gonna be detrimental to your herds, cattle herds, buffalo herd. Not supposed to have anything, 3 foot, under 3 foot, I believe. No grazing to where it chews it down lesser than 3 foot.
Yeah, that's,
Pretty tough, isn't it?
yeah.
It's pretty tough to hay too.
But this is ongoing legislation that's been going on now for, what, 15 years?
Well, the lesser
20
prairie
years.
chicken deal's really come out over the last year.
Well, no, it's been longer than that, yes, yeah. It's been an ongoing issue for several years.
Right.
That legislation our legislation has been fighting it now for, it's been several years. And don't quote me on the years, it's been quite a while.
Right.
The lesser prairie chicken isn't,
I'm not sure if any chickens left in Coffee County.
well, that's the greater.
If there are, they're on the western border.
That's the greater prairie chicken. The lesser prairie chicken is a smaller animal than
Okay.
what we've seen.
Okay, yeah.
But we're gonna get these
It's coming.
regulations imposed on us if we don't fight this, is
No,
that correct?
No, I agree, that's
Yeah,
right.
so I mean, it's not about the birds as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned,
It's about overreach.
It's
about
Overreach is
Yeah.
what
Right.
it's about.
so,
The population of the lesser prairie chicken, if I understand it, is starting to grow a little bit, in Oklahoma and western Kansas, but yeah, if it's not fought, then they'll just continue to find something else to.
The one thing that really harms the lesser prairie chicken is shade.
Right.
Well, how much shade does them windmills put out in the lesser prairie chicken habitat? They don't have any information on that. There's no information.
well, it just seems to me that if federal government is using Fish and Game and EPA and everybody else as a means to put more and more restrictions on our private property, and it's out of control. And I don't think we have any choice but to try to battle it when we get the opportunity. That's just,
If you don't have pushback, it just keeps
yeah,
happening.
just keep
No,
taking more.
we need to fight it.
Yeah.
Well, the ballot deadline is March 31st, so if you guys wanted to tune in to the
Zoom meeting.
meeting and hear what they have to say, and then Tim will be here
That Monday.
the Monday prior, so if he is
Hey, Don.
gonna act as the proxy.
Okay.
There's one that.
That was only, my question with Tim was, you're the proxy person. I don't know why he couldn't cast the vote for the county, because we
Dr.
named
Sumner,
him.
was it, or?
Because you just need to make sure he knows
What?
He might do what he
Talk
wants.
together.
And if he's gonna be here the 27th before that happens.
Yes.
I can add that to your little to-do list on here.
They, hold on, this packet here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Never.
That was all in this packet.
Tourism.
Yeah, that's well overdue, and Bobby was in here, and
Yeah, I saw it earlier and spaced it off over here then.
What was that, Wade?
tourism.
Tourism board
Oh.
appointment is
We
overdue.
could, it's been past due for a week or two.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can discover someone, I'm not sure what department, or what,
Well, Bobby was supposed to be working on it, but
Okay.
that was my understanding, but
He probably is.
he might have been doing something else too, who knows?
he doesn't stay in one spot. He's not gonna root down, that's for sure. He's not. He's not gonna root down. Excuse me. 5 o'clock was a little early this morning.
You can tell there was two the first.
Yeah.
You get everything signed that needs signed?
I hope so. If not, they'll let me know.
Anybody have anything else? Forever now, speak your piece. Nobody else has anything, we will adjourn at 11:42 a.m.
Good.
That was early, this thing.
It's been a while.
So.